Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is your host, Tifiny Swedensky, and you are listening to Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success. And today we are going to talk about the structure of a law firm marketing department.
Sharp Strategies, Sweet Success.
So I've been working in legal marketing for the last 10 years, and currently I'm a fractional CMO. And a fractional CMO is still kind of new to the legal marketing space. It's kind of a new role overall. And the reason that fractional CMOs exist is because a lot of small businesses can't afford a full-time CMO. And so they need somebody with experience in their field with prior experience in managing a marketing department and being a strategic lead for a law firm marketing department. And so that's why a lot of fractional CMOs exist in this space, because it's a lot more affordable for a law firm to hire a fractional CMO and the leader than going out and finding somebody who has experience but probably comes with kind of a higher price tag because they're a full-time CMO. And somebody with that level of experience is going to make anywhere between, and it depends on where you live, but 140 to up to $200,000 a year. And that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a small business. But if you're a small business and your hopes are to compete and be one of the top 3 law firms in your region, you definitely need some strategic marketing leadership at your firm. Now, I say all that, but for most small businesses, the CMO is actually the business owner. Because when you're just starting a business, you hold all the C-suite hats. You know, you're the CEO, the CMO, the CTO, the CFO. If you're a solo just getting started, or maybe you have a few team members, but no other leaders, you're still occupying a lot of those C-suite spaces at your business. And that's totally normal, natural, and fine. There are some startups, there are a lot of big business startups, I guess, that launched with a full C-suite and a full marketing team. But when we're talking in the, small law firm space, obviously that's pretty rare. And so most people get started where the business owner, the lawyer, is the CMO. And so they're the strategic lead for the marketing, and they're essentially doing all of it. And they hold that position until they hire a CMO or maybe a marketing director. There is kind of a gray area between marketing director and CMO. Now, there's actually a difference between these two titles, when you look at big businesses. But for the small law firm, difference between a marketing director and a CMO. CMO is going to have more experience, and the marketing director is probably going to be doing a little bit more executing and tactitional stuff than the CMO is doing. But, these are in most businesses separate and distinct roles, but we kind of blur the lines when we're talking to small businesses, right? So you are the CMO, marketing director, until you hire that person. And here's where a lot of us have been getting this kind of wrong for a long time. My controversial take, and I'll put controversial in quotes here, is that your first marketing hire it definitely shouldn't be a CMO. And even as a fractional CMO, I don't work with law firms that don't already have at least one in-house marketer. And that's because when you're marketing a small business or a small law firm, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I feel like that's obvious maybe, but maybe it's not. Because a lot of times the thing that law firms have been getting wrong for so long is that they'll hire, and I called it on LinkedIn the other day, the Swiss Army knife marketer. They find somebody who has like a huge breadth of experience, and that's not impossible to find. There are a lot of generalist marketers out there. And then they bring this person on, and if they have a lot of experience, they're at the stage in their career where they're a manager or maybe ready to be a marketing director themselves. And if they're at that stage in their career, that means like they're probably not in a position where they've been executing on a lot of tasks. There was one situation a couple years ago where the law firm was interested in hiring somebody who was a marketing manager for a local private school. And they did some really good work as the marketing manager for this, school, and came to the law firm with an impressive resume. But as we started to dig into their background, and actually the HR at that law firm ended up calling the school to interview their supervisor. And I really wasn't aware of this. I mean, I kind of was, I suspected, but I guess, like, as a rule, if you're an employer and somebody calls you with a reference, for an employee, it's in the business, the prior business's best, interest to say, at the very least, neutral things, or hopefully like positive things. And so we talked with this, person who managed this marketing manager that we were going to hire. And in a very, very kind of coded way, they said they are really great at organizing people, but they are not really great at doing all the little things. And it was all the little things that kind of set off a red flag in our minds, because this law firm was looking for somebody who can come on board and work in-house and help us organize events, organize video shoots, take pictures, and also execute on a lot of the marketing tactics that, this law firm uses. We had a very limited team at that time. And in fact, I was kind of that law firm's first marketing hire. And so they were in a position where we needed somebody who could execute and do things, because we had the strategic leadership, not just in me, but in the law firm owner himself. He had a lot of ideas he wanted to put into play. And so we just needed that boots on the ground, kind of go-getter person. And with a manager, you're not going to get that. And I've been in that position where we've hired somebody who's supposed to do a lot of this boots on the ground stuff, but they themselves only have managerial experience, or they just really don't have much marketing experience. They kind of inflated their resume, which happens. I was in a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn, and they made a very good point. And I think it's a very good point, that most people's experience is overrated. And that is absolutely true. And I mean, it's absolutely true from the point of view, if you're like, I remember being in college and being coached on how to get, a job, how to be competitive and how to get your resume noticed and all this stuff. And I was coached on that, and, explicitly coached to, like, prop your skills up in the best light possible. And so that's not even an unethical thing to do. We're just telling job applicants to market themselves and advocate for themselves. And some people do this, really well. When they write on their resumes, they're perfectly honest and clear about what their responsibilities are. But for the vast majority of people submitting resumes, I mean, these days they're ChatGPT generated, and it's kind of a coin flip, I think, if they've actually did that duty that they listed on their resume. Well, I mean, just people tend to over exaggerate. People will lie. If you have a marketing job at a law firm, that is very, 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 very appealing to a huge number of marketing applicants. And I think we kind of underestimate that. I definitely have been in the position where I was somebody with a marketing degree with experience. I'd done a bunch of freelance marketing projects, and with writing experience, I published like a little article in a magazine. All of this I did before, I got my first official marketing job. And all of that kind of unpaid, experience. I was paid in experience work that I did prior to getting an actual marketing role. I was leveraging that the best I could to try to be noticed in job applications. And marketing roles, on Indeed or, anywhere else you might look for jobs. I mean, 90% of them are actually like coded sales jobs. You show up for a marketing job, and you end up interviewing for a sales associate in mattress firm or something ridiculous like that. So if you're a marketing applicant and you're looking for marketing jobs, a good 70% of the work out there is actually a sales and not a marketing job. And so if I was somebody, the Tiffany of, let's just say, like 12 years ago or 13 years ago, looking for a marketing job, and I saw a law firm offering a marketing manager role or a marketing coordinator role or a generalist role, I would be all over that. And I'm not alone. A lot of other people would be too. It sounds prestigious to your average person. And so I think we tend to underestimate like how competitive our own job applications can be. I don't think you have to try to get noticed. You just have to attract the right people with your job description or your job posting, whatever you call it. And so bringing this back to where I originally got started with this, you need somebody, if it's your first marketing hire, you don't need somebody who knows SEO. You need somebody who can log into ActiveCampaign, MailChimp. Now I'm trying to think of another CRM. Keep, not too many people use that. ConvertKit, HubSpot, whatever CRM you use, they need to be able to log into that, put together an email newsletter in it reasonably competently. I mean, putting together a great email newsletter is tremendously difficult to do. Putting together an average one, super easy, and almost anyone can do it. If you want a really, really great email newsletter, consult the pros. But if you need somebody to show up at your office, put together the newsletter, put the newsletter list on the email, and press send or schedule to send, you don't need a marketing manager to do that. You need a generalist or somebody who's maybe got a year or two experience, who's reasonably well competent with just basic technology. And I've said this before on another podcast about hiring marketers, but when you are hiring marketers, understanding the basics of a CRM isn't optional. It's essential. I talked to an attorney recently who said, well, we could hire a digital marketer to figure out MailChimp. And, my reply is that you don't need a digital marketer to figure out MailChimp. You just need somebody who understands the basic of computer applications. Because MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, some of these are more complicated than others. But if you know how to drag a button from one side of the screen and drop it on the other side of the screen, you should be able to use and figure out MailChimp. If you can visualize some systems in your head, you should be able to figure out, MailChimp or ActiveCampaign. And those skills are just the ante to play the game. So you're just getting started. You are the CMO and you hire somebody with a little bit of marketing experience to run your marketing task. And those basic, I think everyone with one marketer should be able to handle this list. This is what it is: weekly email newsletter, monthly print newsletter, a thrice weekly or twice weekly social media post, and list management. Just making sure contacts are being added to your database. The other thing I would add to that list is manage vendors. And when I say manage vendors, I've been asked about that a lot in my career. Like, how do I better manage my SEO? How do I get better results out of my SEO vendor? How do I make sure they're doing what they should be doing? And I'll be honest, for an SEO company, if you want to know what they're doing, it's in their contract. You can look at the contract you signed with the SEO company, and it should tell you exactly what they're going to do. Typically, these contracts include publishing articles of a certain word count. You're going to get either a total word count each month or a total number of articles each month. So the second thing that most SEO vendors are going to do is update your old content or optimize your old content. Again, it's going to be listed in their contract how much of this they're going to do each month. And then these SEO vendors usually do technical SEO. And for me, technical SEO isn't something you need to do every month, but a lot of SEO companies will monitor and make updates as necessary each month. that doesn't mean they're doing something for your technical SEO each month, because if your if your website is technically optimized, it's just technically optimized. And there's not often a lot of changes you need to go back and make, right? If it's done well, maybe like once every 3 months, you find a new issue, you got to go back, or a new issue arises, you have to go deal with it. And an SEO company is going to do that as needed. But, assuming that they do it correctly in the beginning, they're probably not going to be doing much of that each month, right? So the fourth thing that they usually do is acquire backlinks. And backlinks, I don't have to explain what those are. You probably know what those are. Just link backs to your website. And so each SEO company has maybe a slightly different way they acquire backlinks. A lot of SEO companies use third-party white label services to do the backlink acquiring. So they're actually paying a company to do work on your behalf to get these backlinks. And that's not unusual. A lot of companies do it. A lot of companies use these white label services, and it's a necessary service for SEO because backlinks are still an important piece of the puzzle. And just like with content, they're going to be contracted to do a certain number of backlinks for you each month. And so, from my perspective, when you're talking about managing vendors, and vendors are, SEO vendors, web vendors, for the most part, I just feel like most of these companies are doing what they're supposed to do. But just like a lot of companies, like they have different tiers of packages. And if you opted for the lower or mid-tier package, you probably shouldn't expect the same results that their top tier people who paid more for their SEO are getting. You're going to be getting less, and that's going to be reflected in the kind of results you get and the kind of rankings you get. SEO companies will do what they're contracted to do, and a lot of them will do it exceptionally well. And for the most part, when I'm working with SEO companies, they're putting in the work. There's not a whole lot I need to do, or I could do, to get more out of the work that they're doing, if that makes sense. If all they're going to do is write 4 new articles a week, I can make sure those articles are on the right topic, on the right practice area, are properly optimized. But for me, for the most part, I only work with vendors that I trust. And so I'm working with vendors where I know their content is good, and I check in on it every now and then, but I'm not, wondering if they're doing all the right things. I know they're doing the right things, and that's the reason I recommended that we hired them. And so for me, I feel like a lot of law firms make the vendor management piece a much bigger part of the job than it needs to be. Let's just assume you signed up with a vendor that you trust, you signed up with a package that will get you the best results without you overpaying, and they're doing, what they promised that they would do according to the contract. You can manage them by finding issues on the website and asking them to update. But, assuming they're doing what they're doing, you're not going to push them to get better results than they might give another law firm, particularly another law firm that's paying them more. And so, bringing this back, vendor management is just one of those things that your first marketer might do. But also, I've seen plenty of junior marketers, myself included, go on a power trip when it comes to vendors. And so it's one of the things where if you find that your first time marketer is spending a lot of time managing vendors, one, verify that it's necessary. 2, hopefully you hired a vendor you trusted. Maybe, they're doing probably what they can be doing to help you out. And then just check your marketer and let them know hey, we hired these guys, we trusted them. I want you to make sure they keep up with what they're supposed to be doing. But we're not going to get to page 1 of Google by sending them an email each month that says, why aren't we on the page 1 of Google? That's not how it works. If you want the, SEO work to happen faster, pay your SEO company more. It's that simple. So that's the CEO, or that's you as a CMO, and this is your first hire, the marketing manager. And a lot of law firms just stop there, and that's fine. A lot of businesses maybe don't want to grow beyond a certain point, And so they don't need additional marketing help. But I will tell you, and this is not a knock on anyone, but if you have yourself as the CE or CMO, your marketing manager, and that's it, maybe an SEO vendor, website vendor, and that's it, you're going to grow to a point and then plateau. And I don't feel like that's radical to say, right? Because, let's compare, a three, your marketing manager, your SEO vendor, compare that to a 3-person team, to the marketing teams of some of the law firms that I know personally. Now, one of my clients has myself, a fractional CMO. We have a marketing coordinator. We have a video editor and creative director. We have an SEO company. We have a separate PPC company. And now we have a separate local service ads company managing local service ads. And we're just a big team. Nobody is fighting over territory. Nobody is saying like who's doing what or I used to do that. The understanding at this law firm is that we're growing the team and everyone's goal is to get better marketing results. And so, and I may be bragging a little bit, but your 3-person team probably isn't going to outdo our, whatever 5 or 6-person team. I forget how many people I listed. You're just not, because we have at least one team, vendor, person, however you want to classify them, dedicated to SEO. And if you have a marketing manager that's doing social media, SEO, email management, referrals, they're just not going to compete with an entire marketing vendor that has an in-house team, probably their own external team gathering backlinks. Like you're only going to be able to do so much as a 1-person team. That's just fact. And so if you want to stay with that 3-person setup, which is really common, that's great. But a lot of law firms will take, another step and start hiring extra people. This is where I get a little self-serving. But, at that point, you need to ask yourself, do I need another person to execute on marketing projects, or do I need somebody who can lead a little bit? And really at some point, even if you are the CMO and you plan to be the CMO for the rest of the duration of your firm. I talk to a lot of attorneys who are like that. I'm the CMO, I'm the star. And that's the truth, by the way. I'm at the Sharp Marketing Seminar in June. One of the things I try to teach the marketers is that your attorney is the star of the show. They're the star of your marketing and what you do. You're not just promoting the brand, you are promoting them as a person and as an individual. And so part of a marketer's job is to, prop up and paint this attorney, the star of the show, in the best light possible. And so naturally, that's not going to change. If you're a law firm and you're like the head attorney, most of these law firms, it's the lead attorney's name. Where's Bart? Even down in Louisiana, it's the attorney's name. And the brand is built up not just around an abstract, colors and logos. It's built around the person. And so, it makes a lot of sense to me when a lot of attorneys say, I am the CMO and I will always be the CMO. Because in their heads, like they're the literal star of the show. And that's just true. And so naturally, that's going to be a route that a lot of small law firms take. I will always be the strategic lead. I will always say what type of marketing we're going to do. I'm going to say if it looks good, if it meets my objectives, if it strikes the right balance. And really, like, even if they do bring on a CMO, the attorney is never going to fully disengage with the marketing. And I've never seen it. Because as I've been reminded a few times recently, but, business owners, lawyers start a business because they like some aspect of business. And a huge part of that is marketing and brand building. A lot of y'all who started your own law firm, part of you, maybe, love the idea of marketing. and just really kind of was drawn to this entire space. That's why you own a law firm now. And so I think it's going to be actually, well, it's maybe not as rare as it would seem, but there are some lawyers I talk to who just say like, I don't care and I have no idea. I just want more cases. And that's fine. And when I encounter those attorneys, I actually would prefer that they be more involved. I would prefer that they give me, a semblance of or some sense of their personal identity. Because as I said, we are, regardless of, the fact that we have a company and a brand name, we are still marketing around the star of our show, which is the attorney, right? And so some attorneys I talk to are just like, I don't care, and I wish they were more engaged. And then I talk to a lot of other attorneys. I talk to a lot of attorneys who are very interested in marketing. And I talk to their marketers too, who kind of roll their eyes and say, yeah, my attorney is really interested in the marketing. Because, it happens where the attorney loves marketing so much that their meetings are about marketing. Most of their conversations are about marketing. And it's probably, materially more exciting for them than maybe the actual practice law. But I'm not telling anyone who they are. But I talk to those guys too. And they're always going to be some sort of ring leader. But, and this is where it gets self-serving, almost everyone wants to be the star of the marketing, to bring the ideas, to be the leader. But you still need to know how to do these things. If you come to your marketers and say, I want to implement a Reddit marketing strategy. I talked about that on a previous podcast, letting you use something new. You go to your marketers and say, like, I want to establish a TikTok account that people actually want to engage with and follow. Like, or I want to do I want to do an improved YouTube channel where we're publishing content that's entertaining and informational. And I saw this guy, Jeff Hampton, and I want to do exactly what he's doing. If you're the business owner, you come to your marketing team and say, I want this. They'll do their best. They absolutely will. And they'll probably get a long way themselves. But if you've never optimized a YouTube channel, if you've never engaged with or reviewed the metrics, if you've never built a following, all of it's kind of theoretical to you. And so you know what you need to do, but you don't know how to do it. And you're also unsure about what resources you have, what tools you need to get. And I'm talking about if somebody's a marketing manager, 2-3 years of experience, it's a tall order to come to them and say, you may have never optimized a law firm marketing or YouTube channel before, but I want to do exactly what Jeff Hampton does. That's really daunting. And believe me, you're not the only law firm owner asking their marketers to do that. And so there's a lot of competition. Everyone's trying to get better at YouTube, right? And so, there's knowing what you need to do, and then there's knowing how you need to do it, which is a lot of times where I help law firms fill the gaps. Their marketers are capable, they're intelligent, but they've never done this before. And they're working with tools that they don't know if they need something better, or they don't know if there's something cheaper, or they don't know how to get the attorney to record more videos. Like, what's the process for that? And so a lot of times I come in, and some lawyers want me to come in hot with ideas, which we do. But a lot of times, like, the biggest value I give to law firms is, here, we're going to start treating the marketing department not just as, arts and crafts of the business, but actually treat it as a functioning system, like a system within a system that's going to help us get more cases and get more leads. And so the theory, like what we need to do, that's everywhere. Go to one of your competitors and look at their website, look at their social media and see what they're doing. That's easy. I just published a Substack article yesterday, 36 marketing ideas. And I wrote that list Sunday morning before 10 a.m., before my kids really woke up and got out of bed, because that's the only time I have time to write. And, the ideas are easy. I keep telling you all this. Because a lot of times, like, oh, I need ideas, I need ideas. Ideas are everywhere. It's not the ideas that are the hard part. The hard part is, how are we going to do it? And how are we going to do it much better than another team can do it, or another team with our same resources can do it? Because that's the real differentiating factor between a law firm that's just kind of pantomiming what they see their competitors doing without a full understanding of what the competition is doing, how they're using it, what their goals are. Because, in the fog of war of marketing and business, it's really easy to look at somebody's stuff from the outside and say, oh, that looks great. That must be working out great for them. And then for the reality is that maybe it doesn't do a lot for the business. Maybe it's just something easy for the business to do and implement that looks like it's working. Over my career, I've consulted with hundreds of law firms, just tons of attorneys. A lot of them I talked with more than once. And, I was a part of Great Legal Marketing for a lot of years and would help organize their conferences and even speak at a few of them. And I would see attorneys, come to each and every event, every year. Same law firm was there in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. And, a lot of these law firms that came year over year, you could see them grow. And they would grow because they would go back to their offices, take what they learned and implement it. But, and not calling anyone out specifically, I would also see the same or different attorneys, but attend events, multiple years in a row, and then come up to me and say, like, oh, I just don't know. I don't know what to do. And it's valid, even though they probably went to the event and sat down and heard 20 new ideas that they didn't implement or haven't implemented before lunch. But they don't know exactly how to execute on any of them. They don't know, like, how do I, what times do I post on social media? Can I post links? Do I need a CTA in this? Like, how often should we post this? A lot of those questions go unanswered when you're at events. And so you need to bring somebody in who, is like a project manager. I don't want to undersell my role as a CMO, because CMO and project managers are different things. But when you're working with a law firm that has like three people marketing team, project management is a big part of what leadership does. Setting deadlines, setting expectations in terms of what gets done when and who does what. And then also having this understanding of how long something is supposed to take. That's something else that's kind of in the marketing fog of war. It's like, how long does it take to set up an email newsletter? It's just putting words on a page. ChatGPT could do it in 2 seconds. Well, it takes like an hour and a half, but it doesn't take half the week or something like that. And so, sometimes business owners just have no idea how long these specific marketing tasks take. And so you need like that leadership who not only knows like, hey, can you set this email newsletter up today? And do it with the authority that they know this could be done in a day and you can do it today. Because when you're running a business and running a law firm, it can be hard to stay like plugged in and connected with what your team is doing on a day-to-day basis. I know that from personal experience, trying to do your work. And then I have 3 other employees that I'm keeping up with and making sure they're doing their work and they're getting feedback from me when they need it. And I'm giving them direction on what to do next and just acting in that role. And I only have a 3-person team, and I know some of you law firms have, 10 attorneys, paralegals, case managers, receptionist, intake team. You might have like a 10-person team at your law firm and a 1-person marketing department. And so for a lot of the reasons I just listed, like telling your marketing department not just what to do, but how to do it. setting reasonable expectations and project timetables where not only they know how long something is supposed to take, or not only do you know what timeline you want to get done on, but you know, like, what your team is capable of doing, what skills that they have, what skills they need, what tools they need, and are able to give them that guidance. Because unless your first marketing hire is somebody who is a leader, like is a CMO, but for some reason has decided to accept, a quarter of what they would usually make to work as a marketing manager, which by the way is probably unlikely, then, unless you have that, unless they have that built-in experience where not only they know how to do things, but also what they need to do next. And they also have time to figure out, like, what do we need to do next? I mean, I can just tell you that's super uncommon. The marketers that I know who are running law firms that aren't running a department solo. They have a marketing team or a network of vendors or a combination of both at their disposal. And then, some law firms have that solo marketer because that's all they're growing well enough on their own. And for the for the lawyers who are really good, they themselves at networking, they have a strong social media following, or they like to go and attend CLEs, and they get referrals just because they're that type of person. Maybe all you need is a one person marketing team because you just need somebody to update social media and your email newsletter. But, and I'll bring this back to an earlier point, your one person marketer only has so much bandwidth. Every person gets the same 40 hours a week as everyone else. And some of the law firms I work with have, 5 or 6 person marketing team, or, vendors and team members, and they're growing. We're looking at who our next hire is. And you just have 3, you got to set reasonable expectations about, like, how much this one person can do for your business. And by and large, it's hard to do the executing and the ideating at the same time. A lot of times you're just in one brain mode or the other. And so you're probably not going to get like a leader, warrior, executor on your team unless you just get really lucky. And then if they're really talented, they're going to want to move up in their careers and their job titles or in their salaries. And if you're not growing, with them to accommodate them, they're going to do their own thing maybe. So you start your business and you're the CMO, and then you hire somebody who's executing for you, your marketing manager. And then at this point, you're probably going to bring in some sort of leadership or manager to manage not only your team, but maybe the other vendors who are working with you. And as somebody who has like the time and bandwidth to manage other people, give them timely feedback, and also like look at your data and analyze it the way, at a pretty high level. You want somebody doing your data analysis who knows what they're looking at. And then who you hire, like outside of that, like for your marketing department, just depends on how you're going to market. So I firms that are going heavy into video and into TikTok and YouTube and just want to go dominate their strategies, it's actually really easy to hire an offshore video editor. And in fact, my video editor is offshore, and they handle all of my video clips, all of my graphic design and creatives. And he's really great at what he does, and just is really great at helping me. And he's editing this video, so I have to be careful when I say. But he's just great at like cutting all of these things together. And that's just a piece of the marketing that's handled, and it's handled by somebody who knows what they're doing and who's dedicated to it. And by the way, if you've never had to like upload a video to Google Drive and then realize that it takes an hour, then understand that video editing just takes a long time. Video editing is extremely time consuming. That's something, you want somebody dedicated to video if you're going to do video. But if you're not doing video, if you're not doing digital marketing like PPC or ads or something like that, maybe you're focusing more on referrals, then you need a marketer on your team who is good at that. And actually, I kind of see it pretty commonly where the marketing director is that person. They're also the person who's managing referral relationships and they're doing like face to face networking with other attorneys and other business owners. Um, and I've seen that and it works out perfectly in some cases, as long as that person has enough time to manage the other people in the marketing department. Otherwise, if you don't want, if you need a dedicated leader because you have a marketing manager doing this, you have a video editor doing this, you have your SEO vendor, PPC vendors doing this, then if you're, still want to grow and get more referrals, you probably need at least one person who can do that networking. And yeah, you probably want somebody to like network and interface with other business owners, but you probably also want somebody who can go to a medical clinic and drop off a, stack of 15 books and say, "Hey, we're a law firm down the street. We handle car accident cases. Here's a stack of books on how to handle a property damage claim on your own. If you have anybody come in as a patient who's injured in a car accident, you can give them this book to help out with the property damage claim part, and maybe we'll be able to help them with their case." And essentially give them a free resource that they can hand out to their patients at their office. It sounds simple, but it works. We've done this at like two law firms I work at, or I work for, and I'm surprised both times this has happened, but the doctor's office gives them all out and calls us up and says, "Hey, we need more." And that's great. And that's expanding our footprint with their patients, getting the books and reading our materials. But it's also expanding our influence with them as business owners, because now the business owner of this medical clinic knows her name. Their front desk people know her name. Their nurses maybe know her name. And that's just that many more people interfacing with other people who might get into car accidents. They know our name, they can recommend us. Simple as that. And it all starts with just that one person who can hit the streets, hand out books, keep track of relationships, keep spreadsheets updated, know who they need to contact next. And just generally, like, is really good at personal interfacing, being helpful. And that is a very important hire for a lot of law firms who are kind of rejecting digital. And even though it sounds simple, managing referrals is a full-time job. And I've seen a lot of law firms do this thing where, we combine it with the intake role or we combine it with the paralegal role. And I run a business, and if you need something done, it's much easier to delegate to an employee that you have instead of like hiring somebody new. And I totally get that. But again, like, if you went to an event and heard of somebody's super cool, complicated referral program process, and you're going to bring that back to your marketing manager who's already doing like a zillion other things and expect them to implement it flawlessly on their own without bugging you too much about it, ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen. So you need somebody if you want to implement one of those things full tilt, you need somebody who's good at managing relationships and keeping track of relationships. There are a lot of people who were working sales jobs and selling Cutco knives or something like that who would love to break into marketing as an event manager or as a networker. I don't know what the name of the role is, but somebody who's managing those referral and informally sales relationships. I guess I'll wrap up this podcast with, some responsibilities that if you're building out your marketing team and you're going to hire more than one person, you can hire whoever you want. You can do something cool and creative with your marketing and hire like a video person if you're going to be a specialist in video. Hire the referral person if you're going to go after referrals heavy. But maybe you just want to do something totally different. And you can hire whoever you want to fill that role, as long as you're clear about what that role is and what it's supposed to do, which is key to all of this. Like, if you're hiring for a marketing role, it really behooves you to understand what type of marketer you're hiring and what their rules and what their task and responsibilities will be. Because one big issue I see is we put out a job description and it's like a general, or it's so generalized. And if you want to hire like a marketing manager, let's say you want to get your first marketing hire, I think the biggest favor you could do yourself is go to your job description and strike anything about SEO or PPC off that list. Because as soon as you put SEO or PPC on a job description, you're going to get a ton of spam. A lot of companies selling that to do that on behalf of your business. And then you're going to get maybe people who are really looking for a specialist like PPC SEO role, but they see your job and say, well, let's give it a shot. And then it happens too often, like business owners see, oh, you're a Google Ads expert. Oh, damn, like I could hire you and you could run all my Google ads and we could all make a ton of money. Great. Same thing with SEO. It's like, oh, you have experience in SEO? Oh my God, we can bring SEO in-house. We don't need to pay this expensive agency. But I mean, unless that is fully their job, like unless their job is 100% PPC, and I'm even hesitant to say 100% SEO, I don't think you should bring SEO in-house. I don't think you should bring PPC in-house, is what I'm getting at. Because one, like, yeah, you may find like an out of work PPC specialist, but I doubt you're going to pay them the kind of salary that they would probably get, doing, this kind of work for an agency. And then a lot of PPC specialists could probably make a good bit of money as like media buyers. I did that for a little while. I was a media buyer for hotels. And, you could make more money doing that than you could probably being a PPC specialist for a law firm. And so you end up attracting people who work at your job, work at your company for a few weeks and then go on to the job that they really wanted, which is a full-time SEO or full-time PPC job. So I would take those out of your job description entirely. I mean, these days, I'm like not sure in-house marketing teams should even bother writing blog content unless they're writing 100% original thought, no chat GPT needed, this is unique. I don't think you even need somebody who can write optimized SEO articles, Yeah, I'm just not sure how important that's going to be for an in-house team to do in the future. Back 5 years ago, even if you had an SEO team, you might publish blogs kind of casually. Maybe you just had an idea for an article. SEO company didn't have the bandwidth to write it that month. You assigned it to your marketer and they did it. And, we did that a lot back in the day and it made sense, because if you could publish more content on a website, then you could have the potential to be more competitive. But the game has changed so much with ChatGPT. And more blog content on your website, particularly if it's blog content written by ChatGPT, it's not going to get you much. So you may not even need your person to do that. So maybe take off blog writing. No, you know what? Keep it. I'll walk that back because it's really nice to have marketers who are good at storytelling. And if they were like writing, I like them. Like that's just my shortcut to finding good marketing hires is finding people who are really good at writing. But if you're gonna hire for any type of like niche specialist, don't hire for PPC, in-house PPC. Don't hire in-house SEO. You don't need those skills in-house. You can hire an agency with a full team of experts who have done this for other people, who can do it 1,000% better than you can. Same thing with SEO. And so, you can grow your marketing team however you want at this point, but as long as you have people who can execute, people who can do the work, and you also either you're doing it or you have somebody come in as leadership and guide your team to completing these projects, making sure they get done, and also having them internally build processes for everything that eventually turn your marketing department into like an engine that generates leads for your business. I wish I was more poetic. But the best marketing teams are people using systems and processes to get an outcome. And the architect of those systems and processes, you or your fractional CMO or your CMO, is really important because without that architect, without the person with the vision who knows like how to put it all together and how to make it all work together, and also what's working for other businesses, it's invaluable. It really is. So I talked about how to build a marketing department before. And if you're interested in listening to that talk that I gave at the 2024 GLM Summit, so I'm actually going to send you to a different podcast to see that full recording. Go to Brian Glass's Life Beyond the Briefs. I was a few episodes back. I could probably look it up, but you'll see Tifiny Swedensky's talk from the GLM Summit, I think is the title. And I pretty much go through the same things I went on this podcast, but if you want a little more information, and plus I don't remember exactly all the things I talked about at that event, visit the podcast and hear the recording. So I've been very lucky. Since I launched Sharp Cookie about 3 years ago, I pretty much had a full book of clients. And in the last in the last like 2 years, I've only onboarded one other person. And I basically onboarded new clients as we've had the bandwidth to take them. And after talking with a lot of attorneys these last few years, I really wanted to home in on what law firms need from a fractional CMO. So I actually created kind of a lower tier of my original fractional CMO program. And my original fractional CMO program, we're only working with law firms that have existing teams, and we're more plugged into what they do. I'm meeting with them weekly, the team members and law firm owners. We're doing a lot of tracking and reporting each week. And then my team helps execute on the tasks that the in-house team isn't able to get to themselves. And so that typically includes a lot of technical tasks or video editing or kind of specialist things that maybe they don't have the in-house talent to do at the time, but we could backfill and do some of that work. But that's my executive tier program. And a lot of attorneys I've talked to say they'd be interested in having us come in and lead their team, but just on a lesser engagement level, a cheaper level, to tell you the truth. So I put together a new tier of my fractional CMO program. It's called the Advisor tier. And we're actually formally launching the Advisor tier this week. This episode will be aired sometime on or around August 1st, 2025. And so we'll have opened the program by then. You'll be able to visit Sharp Cookie Dev and learn more about our fractional CMO programs, the executive tier and the advisor tier. And right now we're looking to bring on some law firms on the advisor tier. And so if you're interested and you want to learn more about working with me and working with my team and having us coach your team and train them on not just what to do, but how to do it. Me and my team have a library of hundreds of how-to guides on how to complete various marketing tasks, things like from setting up Facebook campaigns to doing complicated like email or complicated Zapier automations for marketing attribution. We're also continually making marketing plans and programs for our clients. And a lot of times almost all times we take these programs that we make for our clients, these marketing plans, and make them available to our other fractional CMO clients who need similar programs or similar marketing strategies. And so that's one benefit of working with a fractional CMO that I always like to kind of emphasize is that, yes, I'm somebody working with a few different firms, but also you're getting the shared experiences and the shared work and the shared planning that we're doing, not just for one client, but for all of them. And so if we're working with somebody and we hit on something that really works, that everyone should try, and that's new, we're going to implement it or try to implement it with all of our other law firms. And so that's what I like about being a fractional is sometimes like you just have to make one thing and that one thing works really well for 5 or 6 different people. And it's how we can be effective at delivering good marketing leadership to the law firms. And so the advisor tier is open. We potentially could take on another executive tier client, but at this time, we're mainly open at the advisor tier level. And so if you're interested and you want to learn more, I have a handy URL where you can just contact me directly and get a time on my calendar. talktotif.com. That's TalkTotif.com. and that'll take you actually kind of to my link tree. But you'll find a link there where you can schedule a time to talk with me and learn more about maybe how we can work together. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to this podcast episode. I hope you got something from it. Don't forget to follow Sharp Strategies Sweet Success. Also, you can check out Sharp Cookie on Substack. That link is also available at talktotiff.com. And if you want more information like this, each week on Substack, I publish a totally unique, totally written by me article. You're never going to find it anywhere else. You won't get ChatGPT to generate it for you because I make it. And go there and you can see all of the new content, all of the new how-tos and informational articles and guides that. And honestly, I love writing for Substack more than I like writing for anything else. So if you want to see me at my best, visit Substack and get signed up as a subscriber there. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for listening to Sharp Strategies Sweet Success, and I'll see you in the next episode.